Welcome back, everyone, to the FloTrack podcast. I'm Kevin. He is Gordon. FloTrackPodcast at gmail.com is the email address. You can subscribe to the FloTrack Podcast YouTube page. I am in Fayetteville, Arkansas currently. Although, if you're watching or listening, it's no different because Gordon and I are never in the same place when we record this show. We are always separated via an internet connection. But, Gordon, how are you doing today?
Doing good. I won't even bring up why I'm in a good mood because you don't like it when I talk about the certain thing in my life that brings joy. It has to do with basketball and the city of Philadelphia. But
Okay.
let's not talk about that. Let's talk about our sponsor, good old Hoka.
There it is. Gordon holding up the CLOX, holding up the MD right there. Hoka is sponsoring the podcast. I'm holding up the LD here, the orange ones. The CLOX is the name of the shoe. They're powered by the propulsion of carbon. CLOMD for mid distance, LD for long distance. Remember, the website is Hoka.com. Hoka faster forward. I brought, as promised, the shoe to Fayetteville. But what did I do, Gordon? I brought the right shoe this time because I wanted to be fair. The left shoe got to go to Raleigh. I wanted to make sure the shoes knew I appreciated them both equally. So this is the right shoe's turn. So the right spike got the call and is now with me in Fayetteville, Arkansas.
Kev, you know shoes don't have feelings, right? Like they can't talk. They don't have feelings.
You keep telling me that, and I keep disagreeing with you. While we're here, I want to bring up one thing before we get started. And we're going to go over the NCAA stuff later, right? Really fast. It took a lot to get into the NCAA meet, correct? Your favorite runner from Stanford, who you want to put on the U.S. team but is British, a gentleman by the name of Charles Hicks. He's in the meet, correct?
Yeah, he qualified in the 3K, I believe. Let me double check. Yeah, they had a last minute qualification. Yeah, him and Cole Sprout both qualified. Yeah, 3K.
Okay.
7:43.
So you'd think based on that information that it's a good week for Charles Hicks, correct? Things are going well?
Yeah, I mean he wasn't in any event, and then last chance meet he got in.
Things could take a turn though, because my cameraman, our colleague Brian Dybel, has identified one of Charles Hicks's Strava segments here in Fayetteville, and either today, tomorrow, or Wednesday is going to try to get his Strava segment. So things might be turning for Charles Hicks. It might not all be great news for him if a washed up former mile split, current Flow Sports employee is able to get one of his segments. So stay tuned. We'll have an update on that on Wednesday. Brian, you think he's going to be able to do it?
Well, you're putting the cart before the horse here, man. You're announcing that he's going to defeat this Strava segment.
I'm confident.
There's a lot of confidence. How long is this Strava segment? That's the real question. Is it just a block where you can just kind of hop and skip and finish it?
I think it's just under a mile, this particular segment. And it's at a quick pace. Okay. It's at a quick pace. I could not do it. You could not do it. Let's just say that. The other thing I want to announce, we're recording our bonus pod for members right after this one. We're going to talk about ways to fix indoor track. I'm going to lob some ideas to Gordon. I wrote them down on this notepad right here. I'm not going to show everybody the notepad. Got to subscribe for that info, folks. And then Gordon's going to tell me where I'm wrong or where I'm right. So subscribe if you want to get that bonus pod. For subscribers, you'll get it, basically as soon as it posts. It's our February offering. I saw we got another member of Kevin's Kings joining the group now, so we're looking solid. That roster is pretty good. We got 2 folks now. So join if you haven't yet. Get the bonus content, all the the custom emojis and the GIFs and all that fun stuff. So let's get into the show though. We're going to talk about USAs. We're going to talk about college stuff, but first we got to start with Josh Kerr running a 3:48 mile. That's a pretty big deal. Was targeting the British record in the 15 in the mile. You said, Gordon, give you some credit. You said not only is he going to break, he's going to smash it. He's going to go well under it. And at about halfway, when the pacer stepped off, that didn't look like to be in the cards. It looked like, hey, he's going to struggle just to get 3:52. But he turned things up the last 4 laps, dropped an insane negative split to go 3:48.87. So now he's only behind Kajelka and Garouge on the all-time list. We knew he was in good shape because of Milrose, didn't get the win there, but you put him on the fast track of BU, his aggressive style of racing makes sense now in retrospect that he was able to get it done. But 3:48, still an eye-popping time for Josh Kerr.
Yeah, once again, the fact that he went out in 156 and ends his venture with a 3:48 is very impressive. Typically,
Yeah,
when you're going for these extreme marks like a sub 350, you got to put it all out there in the opening, half mile, just hold on for the record. And he did the exact opposite. He just he
yeah,
said, wait, he said, hold my beer at the 800-meter mark, and then went for it and got to the
yeah,
3:48. Very impressive. Also broke the 1500-meter record in route 3:32, but it's all about the 3:48 here. And he was confident, man. Like
yeah.
I watched the. Sometimes I like watching track meets on silent for some. I don't know, because I'm like doing other things. I was watching
Mhm.
uh, a certain basketball game at the same time. Go Sixers.
Yeah,
So I had that game on, and then I was watching this race on silent. And
yeah.
when I was watching the second half of the race, when he was by himself, I was like, it looks like he's struggling. It looked like he was
Mhm.
hitting a wall. I was like, oh, he's gonna run like 3:53. But then I
Yeah,
looked at with the lap to go. I was like, wait a minute, he just needs to run like 30 seconds and he's gonna break the record. Wait, he's probably
yeah.
gonna close quicker than that. And I was kind of like, the visual did not meet what the time was for some reason. I don't know
Mhm.
if it's because he was by himself for a majority of that second half, because
Yeah, I
he
think
had to
that's
do
it.
all that work. Sure, he had his teammate Walid Suleiman, rabbit him through the first half of the race, but he was all alone. No one was really with him. Typically, a lot of the times during these quicker races, you might have like three
Yeah.
people who are kind of single file in the second half of the race, but no, it was just him by himself with his own thoughts, just chasing a mark, and it was hell of impressive. 3:48. Again, we
Yeah.
know shoes. As you can see, they point out the shoes there, the Brooks shoes. That's always going to be the asterisk that people put on all fast times. But man, he did that solo, number 3 all time in the world. Only Kajelcha's the only one to go in the 3:47s. It's impressive.
Yeah.
And Josh Kerr, man, Josh Kerr, Oliver Hoare, these NCAA born and bred athletes who are not from America are lighting it up on the world stage, and it's exciting to see what he does and what Oliver does, this upcoming
Mhm.
summer.
And podcasters too.
Yes,
NCAA
podcast.
former champions turned podcasters are exceptional milers. The reason I don't think it looked that fast in those latter stages is because the acceleration came from lap 4 to lap 5, because he goes from a 29 low to a 27, and then he stays at a 27. Like, that's where the record was broken. The record was broken in laps 5 and lap 6, and he did actually slow in 7 and 8, but he didn't get back into the 29s, and by that point, he was moving. Um, I talked about it on This Week in Track, which you can find on our YouTube page as well too. The level of confidence you have to have going into a race to write British record on your spikes is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. The only level up you could go from here is if he had the, I guess, if he did a TO and he had the Sharpie in his sock, that wouldn't have been as confident, because then if the race ends and you don't get the British record, you can just forget all about it. Like, he puts it on his shoe in permanent marker before the race starts. And we know Kerr, he's a confident guy. And but it's one thing to say you're going to do it, and it's one thing, a whole other thing, to write it down physically on your shoe before you run. I mean, this is the sign of a man who is very, very, very sure of his abilities, and I love it. I love it. I think uh, it made indoors really fun this year, and I'm excited for more battles outdoors between him and Hoare, and then going outside of the U.S. based athletes, Ingebrigtsens and Chariots of the world. Can they close that gap? Is it going to be Ingebrigtsen and Chariot just this year, or have Kerr and Hoare proven this indoor season that they can close that gap?
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting. I'm really excited for Hora and Kerr to race Ingebrigtsen for the first time whenever we're going to get it,
Yeah,
whether it's April, May, June. I hope it's soon, and I hope it's often. Um,
yeah.
we is Oliver Horde going to World Indoors?
I know
Do we
Kerr's
know?
not. I don't remember
Because
what Hoare
Kerr's
said.
not, right? So,
Yeah,
yeah, I guess we need. Doesn't that kind of suck, man? Like Josh
it
Kerr
totally sucked.
runs 3:48, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm not going to
Yeah.
race." But it's
So
just it sucks.
Ingebrigtsen's 3:30.6. That's pretty close to 3:48 in the mile. I mean, it's faster, equivalent, different tracks, different setups, but in the same in the same ballpark. The amount of people who could time trial at 3:48 right now in the mile indoors, pretty short list of folks. And I think Ollie Hoare could go faster because Ollie Hoare runs the 350 at Melrose, not at BU, and runs it in a regular type race. Yeah, there was a rabbit, but wasn't set up like this. Kerr is just fun. These guys are so much fun because they don't need anybody else to make it happen. The fact that the
Yeah.
rabbit could leave and then he starts dropping 27s is wow, man. That's nuts. That's absolutely nuts. Let's talk about another distance guy though. Let's go to the US champs. We're gonna bounce around a little bit here because with all this top level competition, it wasn't just like, oh, the US champs dominated everything. Like there was big times, big performances everywhere. Cole Hocker gets the double. He goes, wins the 3,000 on Saturday, and then the 1,500 on Sunday. 1,500 got a little bit easier because Cooper Tier had to withdraw from the meet because of COVID. But still, Hawker got it done again with this double. The 15 was tougher. He had to really claw that last 50 to get by Josh Thompson. 3K more to form. Did anything here surprise you from Cole Hawker?
Not really, man. This was the most unsurprising double. Typically, when you see doubles at indoor championships, you're like, "Whoa!" You're like, I remember seeing Shelby doing it when Paul Chelimo was doing it. A bunch of other
Mm,
athletes seeing them double. You're like, you are like the star of running in the U.S. for like this year. But
yeah,
there was just so much expectation that Cole Hocker was just clearly better than everyone else in that field. And then
yeah.
once Cooper Tier pulled out, it became even more obvious. I mean, I don't think this double happens if Cooper Tier is racing in the 1500. I think Cooper would have won the 15. Um, let's put on a tinfoil hat.
Don't put on your shinful.
Maybe
Keep your shinful.
Cole Hocker
Keep,
found
keep,
a way to like put a little COVID in his hot tea late last night, the night before the meet.
not
He's like,
how
all
it
right,
works. Not how that
so
works.
that's not
But
how
go
it
ahead.
works.
No,
Like a
not how
little
it works.
COVID pill or
What?
something like that.
So, what do you think? Watching the 1,500, I was struck by a couple things. It didn't go that fast, and these guys have been pushing it this year, particularly guys like Colby Alexander. Did you think, like midway, pull up Hawker's placing here? He was buried for a bit there. Do you think because he was coming back for the double, do you think there was an opportunity for the rest of the field here to really like put their foot down and they missed it? Because I mean, he was in 10th place. You're looking at 700, he was at 10th place, and then moved up. Even with 500 to go, or sorry, with 600 to go, he was in sixth place. I thought that like Thompson and those guys and Win, like their best chance would have been a 333 type race, 334 type race. But it just became inevitable really quickly. But for a while, that Hawk was pretty far back. Do you think? And I saw afterwards, Thompson said he was surprised by Hawker coming up on him on the outside. I don't know how anybody can be surprised by a Cole Hawker kick at this point. Like, is there anything they could have done to beat him? Because when I was watching, I found myself saying, like, hey, middle of the race, this guy's pretty far back and he's got a 3K in his legs. He might be vulnerable here, but you got to get the pace going. Did you see any of that, or do you think it was just Hawker was going to move regardless of where the pace went?
No, I don't think a fast pace would have changed anything. I think Hawker would have
Okay.
moved up at just adapted to whatever pace it was going to be. Hawker is not a person where I look at him like he only can handle specific styles of races. I mean, as from what I see right now, I mean, maybe that will change. Hawker has yet to show that he can handle like 330 races, right? Like 330, 329 races, but that's, crazy Monaco
It's
level
pretty much everybody.
type.
Yeah.
Yeah. But he shows that he can handle 335s and 340 type races.
Yeah.
I think the only way Hocker would have lost this race is if the dynamics of an indoor track with it only being 200 meters and just shuffling around, where if there was like a barricade created where he wasn't able to get around a certain athlete, and it kind of just staggered his stride a bit and lost a little bit of momentum. And then someone like Thompson took advantage of that. Because Thompson, he only lost by like 0.1. It wasn't like
Yeah.
a blowout pulling
Yeah.
away. That I think if there was a little more pushing and shoving on an indoor track, maybe that would have been a way for Thompson to have enough real estate to pull it off.
He needed every inch to get past him. That's why I thought, man, if you just put a little bit more into him in the first half of that race, then you could have had a different result. And because he was coming off a 3K and Thompson wasn't, most of these other guys weren't, and Alexander probably not, not his best race. We've seen him run really fast this year. Angles, I think you needed someone really just to go for it and try to string it out. But you could be right. He could have just figured out whatever the game plan was and rolled with it comfortably. But he gets the double. Has he? I don't think he's announced yet whether or not he's running. Do you think he's going to run Worlds?
That fact that question is being spoken is sad for our sport. He hasn't really announced it yet. Do you think he's running Worlds? What do we have in a world? What do we have in a USA Championship for? If like we have to, I'm not criticizing you. I'm just criticizing our sport. How we don't know. There's like are they not? I don't know. Maybe do they have the standard? Do they don't? All this stuff.
Well, so there's two parts to it. There's the part that we talked about last week. It's like who's going to show up to the meet. And the second part is who's going to actually go to Worlds. And people forget about the second part sometimes because they get so upset about people not being there that there's this whole group of other people. And it's not a huge number, but even if it's 3 people turning down spots, it's pretty crazy because that doesn't happen outdoors at all. So I don't know. And usually when people say, I don't know right after, that turns into a no. Because if it was a yes, you'd say yes, and then you'd get right into team processing and doing all that stuff. Or you pass it to the next person down, and then you let them know. I don't know. If he runs a 15, you can see him against Ingebrigtsen. I guess you can see him against Ingebrigtsen in the 3, and the 3 is going to be crazy too because we know how good Ethiopia has been this year in the 3,000. That with Aragawi and Germa, Barrega, Wale, that like whole crew. Like they have a bunch of people to choose from. You have the Spanish guys in Katir and McCall. It's going to be a good race, I think, at World Indoors in the 3, and it could be a good one in the 15 as well too, especially if we get most of that top 5 or at least some of that top 5. So I don't know. That's why I was asking. I legitimately don't know. All right, let's move on though. Brazier, Donovan Brazier. What a weekend for Donovan Brazier. I'm sure people have heard the oh wow, Travis has got the screenshot here. So listen, you can step on the line. You can't step over the line. That's that new rule, right? But you can only do it once. So he's not completely over the line here. Anyway, let me back up. He got DQ'd in the prelim. He appealed. It was denied. He found out about it after the 800 had taken place. So basically he went from running 2 races to getting knocked out in the first round and not having an opportunity to run any race. Then on Sunday morning, the morning of the 400-meter final, he was reinstated because they said there was new video evidence. He gets back in, gets second in his heat, so he makes it. And he said he is going to the World Indoor Championships behind Trevor Bassett from Ashland, who ran a great race there in second. This is another thing where I just feel like it's Groundhog Day. We always have a DQ controversy, either indoors or outdoors, particularly indoors. We always have a lot of people getting disqualified. We always have a very convoluted appeals process where no one actually knows what's going on with it. I don't know if you want to talk about that or you just want to focus on the race. Because at a certain point, it's like you talk about the DQ long enough, it's like you realize you're just having the same conversation over and over again. I didn't think, 46, heading into the season, I wouldn't think 46 low would get him there. But it did. but it did partly because of what the field ended up being um, in this race. So heck, he's on a world team though.
Yeah. To answer your DQ question, first of all, you're all right in Groundhog Day, especially around Donovan. Donovan got DQ'd at World Indoors in 2018. And
Right.
he's like, you
Yeah.
got to be kidding me. And he was supposed to win that year. Like, that was like a year he probably could have won. Um, tinfoil hat. Do you think
Another
there's
one.
any little bit of putting your thumb on the scale in favor for Brazier to get his DQ overturned because they knew, hey man, this is world champion. Clearly, he this millimeter of a toenail is not why he qualified in the first round. What are we doing here? Like, do you think there's a little bit of like, what are we doing here? Are we really gonna use a millimeter of a toenail to
Yeah. Well,
not let our world champion
and
go to Worlds?
and then he can't, because the way the sport works, he doesn't find out about it until his other race has already passed. So then he can't run in the other race. But the problem with that is it's just like you have to have a rule that you stick with because then someone else is really going to abuse it to their full advantage. And then you're going to have say, well, that person should be DQ'd. And they're going to say, well, no, you didn't DQ this person. I don't know. I don't know what the new video evidence was. We've done this game before, literally with that phrase. New video evidence was introduced. It's if like a civilian on the street like had like there's like CCTV camera footage that they're pulling that they're not normally looking at to determine if they're DQ'd. I don't know. It overshadows a bit from the actual event. I'm with you. He would have qualified regardless.
Do you think the new video evidence could have been a new argument in that, hey, you DQing my athlete screwed up him from being able to run in the 800, so
Well,
therefore
that's
you
not
need to
video
make that up
evidence.
and put him back in the 400?
That's not video evidence though.
I know, but
All right, here's
you
my theory.
say one thing and do another thing behind closed doors.
So here's the wild part. Donovan Brazier could win World Indoors in the 400. Let's pull up the
Oh yeah,
indoor list this
100%.
year. Let's pull up the
100%.
indoor list this year. You have
They're all
number
in
one in the world.
college.
Exactly. Randolph Ross. Look at all these Americans.
Yeah.
Bassett is the only guy who beat him. Number 8 all time. So you have Bonavacia of Netherlands, who ran well last year. He's a legit threat. And he's right now run quite a bit faster than Brazier. But this is World Indoors. There's DQs, there's wild things, people scratch, we don't know. Like there's a path for Brazier to actually win World Indoors in the 400.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what will it mean? I have no idea because look at the list of champions of World Indoor 400s. It's not exactly the same podium that you're going to get the Olympics or World Championships. The issue for Brazier, and this is not a surprise, is his start. And it's funny because he's known as a fast 800-meter guy. But compared to these 400-meter guys, he is so far behind at 100. And then he just claws back and claws back and claws back. And then that last 50, he makes really good work of it. In NBA circles, Gordon, there was a theory that Ben Simmons is shooting with the wrong hand. And that explained his shooting woes. I watched this race with Donovan Brazier, and I thought, would Donovan Brazier be faster without blocks? When I watched the start, I thought it might be time for him to forego the blocks. Because
As a
how much block
fellow,
work is this guy doing? How much block work is he actually doing? And you're putting him in blocks. I don't know if it would make him faster just to get rid of it and just run.
I know I shouldn't compare a world-class athlete to a former Division III 400-meter runner and myself, but I was an 800-meter runner training throughout all high school and college, but then I got good at the 400, and I would do the open 400, and I was the only one who didn't use blocks. And then one time I was like, you know what? I'm going to take the next step. I'm going to learn blocks. And I tried it once or twice, and I was like, this is not comfortable. My body isn't used to the positioning of blocks. If you're a sprinter, it comes natural. Oh, God, don't put up.
I hope people are watching on YouTube. Travis found.
Oh, God.
Wow, a young Gordon Mack.
Young Gordon. But it is a legit thing. If you don't normalize block training into
You
your
look like
regular
a villain in a high school drama.
Okay, stop it. If you don't Like the bad kid, like the guy who's like on the
Are you in
rival
Euphoria?
team who steals the girlfriend. Yeah. Okay. Stop it. But what I'm saying is, if you're not used to blocks, it's a very uncomfortable feeling. And I bet you Donovan was probably uncomfortable. He probably could have got an extra 0.2 or 0.3 of a second. You know, I don't know.
Sorry, I
Just,
can't stop
why do
looking
you
at this
have this
photo.
photo up still?
Yeah,
Okay, we don't need to see the
this
same
is
photo
great.
over and over
No,
again.
this is terrific. Who you guys
I
going
never
against
aged.
this week? I got a
I
race
never
against
aged.
Gordon Mack from Liberty High. The Gordon Mack.
Liberty High,
That
that's the same
guy's
high school
that guy's
as
ferocious.
13 Reasons Why.
Okay, so here, okay.
So yeah, I agree. He shouldn't
I
use blocks. He shouldn't use blocks. I agree.
he said afterwards in the interview, he's like, Coach Holloway at Florida had been giving him advice. Because I don't think when you look at, he's starting slow, Brazier's pretty damn quick. I don't think it's just a case of him and obviously some of these quarter guys are going out too fast too, right? That's part of it. Like going out in 21, so Bassett went 21.3, right? And then so he goes like 21 and then 24. So that's part of it too. But I think with Brazier, it's almost like when I watched him start, it's almost like his whole momentum was just thrown off by coming out the blocks. So I think he has a chance to improve just based on that.
I also think a
Um,
strategy that he should do if he does go to Worlds, which he is purposely try to get in the second heat, because normally these finals are two heat finals. Try to get in the slower heat of the two, so you can have the ability to not be like surrounded by a bunch of people running 21 seconds. You have like the second tier. I don't know. Could be another strategy.
The chat says you look like Nate from Euphoria. So this segment is taking a turn. I love where Travis put photos, but yeah, I think I would expect him to run. Like I think he can run faster than 46. Like what? Like obviously he can, right?
100%.
I mean, like, but even what's his pull up his PBs? Or season best at least? I mean, it was 46. Has he broken 46 indoors? What did he run at Milrose? I'm totally forgetting. Oh, that was a season. So that was faster than Milrose. I don't know. I think he can go quicker. I think he can go quicker. I know it's a trickier outdoors indoors, but so him and Bass are going to go. I mean, he's going to get on the 4x4, which is what he wanted to. There was for a while there was like this disaster scenario with Brazier where it's like, I didn't run the 8 because I wanted to get on the 4x4 relay at the very least and maybe run the 4x4 individually. And the only thing that could have gone wrong and that would have scuttled everything would have been a first round DQ. And that's literally what happened because it took him out of the individual 4, took him out of the relay 4, and it took him out of the 8. So basically his indoor season was completely over for several hours. And then he gets reinstated. And then now he gets to finish the season on his terms. Again, I still don't know what any of this means in terms of Brazier in the 800 at all. I tend to think he's still number 1 in the world just based on that 600-meter time. But this 400-meter at World Championships is not going to be, again, it's not going to be the Olympic trials level. It's not going to be the World Championship final level. Yeah, I mean, there's guys. Ross is running 44 mid right now, or is going to run 44 mid for A&T. So, all right, pretty wild. Christian Coleman wins.
Before we get to okay, we can do it. We'll talk about it later.
No, go ahead.
Okay, cool.
Go ahead.
No, it's fine. We'll go Coleman. Go Coleman. Coleman.
Christian Coleman, 645. I think that's what we tagged as the over-under, didn't we? Or I said that he'd be happy with 645. It ties the world lead, although that world lead that was sitting there from Terrence Jones came in a race where we thought he perhaps false started. So that puts him at the top of the list. Bracy debuts with a 648, which I thought was a really good sign for him, equals his season best. So the U.S. will send Bracy and Coleman, pending any changes, to Serbia. Bracy gave Coleman a closer race than I thought, but I think that's a good thing for Coleman as he heads into World Indoors. It's good that he got used to someone being right there because Jacobs is going to run at that level. Jacobs has run 647 before. He hasn't this year, but he's going to run around at that level where Bracy is. I still contend once we get to 6'4" low, Coleman's the only guy in the world who can get there. If he runs 6'4'5", I think he'll be able to squeak it out. It's going to be tight like this one was, but he'll leave himself a little bit vulnerable. But if he can go 6'4" low, 42, 41, no one's going to be near him. So I think this was a ideal race for Coleman in that he got his time and he was able to run it with some pressure.
Yeah, I mean, Coleman couldn't have had a better start to his comeback season, right? Wins a good Milrose race against, Bromell and Baker in sub 650, and then follows it up with a strong 645, showing consistency. He's not going out there running 659s. He's running only world-class times or all-time world-class times. And I think he couldn't ask for a better start. And this got me thinking. I know we're probably thinking we're still not end of the indoor season, but gun to your head, at the U.S. Championships where both are trying, because Coleman technically doesn't need to try the U.S. Championships. Who are you taking in 100 meters? Christian Coleman or Fred Kerley?
Coleman right now.
Over the Olympic silver medalist.
Yeah, because I think the same is true in the 100. I think Coleman can get to a place that these other guys can't get to yet. And if you're talking 6'4" low, or you're talking, now I know, not just Curly, but Bromell too, right? Bromell's running the 9.7s. So you gotta factor him in as well. But I think if Coleman gets back to 2019 Coleman, I think he'll be fine. The problem the issue, the thing that's unknown, is that if he doesn't, if he's just a bit off 2019 Coleman, because then you enter the realm of the Bromells, the Curleys, the Bakers, the Bracys, the Bednariks, the Lyles, the Knightons, I could go on and on. I'm sure I'm missing some people. Mackay Williams, even. Like, they're all in that group. But I think if Coleman is able to go 9.7s, he'll be fine. You disagree?
Yeah. Maybe. I think it's just really hard to ignore what Curly did in 2021.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to say 3 60-meter races by Christian Coleman plus what he did 2+ years ago equals better than Curly. That formula isn't there yet. And even if he wins World Indoors, I think I'm going to need a 639 for me to put Coleman over Curly in the first week of the U.S. rankings. Because I feel like it's just hard to take Curly off the top. Now, obviously,
he might give you
Curly's never going to do this. He might, yeah. And that's what I'm going to say. If Christian Coleman runs 639, then he is the new fastest man in the U.S. If he doesn't, Fred Kerley still is. That's it. I figured it out. So Fred Kerley, Christian Coleman, if you're watching, 639, Coleman's number one. 640 or slower, Kerley's still number one.
Yeah, I would probably still have him one, but we can agree to disagree on that one. You want more data? That's fine. I don't know when we'll have the race. Might be a while till we have the race. But 9.76 is. I know you're saying it's a couple of years ago, but all the markers are there that he's getting back to that form. Yeah. But and again, he doesn't even need. I mean, indoors is kind of a bonus. I get what you're saying, though, for the purposes of preseason rankings. But it's like he could start running hundreds in April and May and then show you some consistent 9.8s, and you'd probably be like, okay, by championship time, this guy's going to be back in the 9.7s. And
yeah.
We're gonna have 2019 all over again. All right, stick with the sprints. Switch over to the collegiate side of things. Abby Steiner of Kentucky had another incredible race, this time at the SEC Championships, where all the times are always fast at the SEC Championships. Breaks her collegiate record, breaks the American record, as well. 22:09 for Steiner. This is the part where you tell me you believed it all along and you've picked her for the last 5 years and you're going to continue to pick her. Is that right? Is that what we're doing?
I did not pick her for the last 5 years. I picked her for the last 2 years. And each
Uh-huh.
year I had an excuse. Year 1 was COVID. Year 2 was injury. Year 3, there's no COVID. There's no injury. She is the next great U.S. sprint star. And every time she's on the track, it's proven I'm being proven right. But 22:09 on
Mm-hmm.
an indoor track is moving. And I know U.S. has a medalist in Gabby Thomas,
Mm-hmm.
but like
Hold on.
I'm at first.
Oh, are we talking about rank? You just did a segment where you said you're not going to overrate indoors in terms of rankings. You're like, hold on a second.
I know dude, that's what's great about podcasts. You can just contradict yourself 20 minutes later. In this case, I'm contradicting myself
2 minutes
2
later.
minutes later.
Yeah.
But here's the thing. First of all, Anivia Battle, what did Anivia Battle run at the Olympic trials?
Oh, she was 20. She was 21, wasn't she? I could pull
Yeah,
it
I'm
up.
gonna bring up her personal best. So she ran 21:95 for third place at the Olympic trials. Anivia
Yeah.
Battle this year has run. Dang it.
Uh-oh.
I'm
Gordon's point really
bringing up,
just hit a
bringing
snag
up.
here.
I know it's not as good as I'm not able to do it really quick.
All right.
Battle has
Well,
run
moving on,
22
Gordon.
30. No, hold on. Battle has run 22:39.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Abby
Yeah.
Steiner is a
Yeah.
full 0.3 seconds faster than a woman who ran 21 seconds last year.
Yeah. I don't. What?
I mean,
What are you arguing right now? You're arguing that she's going to make the
transitive
team.
property. You
I don't
transitive
think anybody.
property that shit. And Steiner is running freaking 20 seconds in the 200.
I don't.
She's not running
Okay.
20
Well, that's
seconds,
ridiculous.
obviously. But like, she's running much faster than someone who made the Olympics who ran
Yeah. Yeah.
21:95. I
Yeah.
really think
Yeah.
Steiner has the ability to run in the 21:876s.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't
And if you're
disagree with
doing
that.
that,
Yeah.
you could definitely beat Gabby Thomas. You could be number 1. You could, dare I say it, challenge, certain international athletes out there in the Caribbean and the Jamaicans and the few. I mean, I don't want to say their names out loud because they're clearly better than Abby Steiner. Because you should definitely respect the Jamaican female sprinters. But I'm just saying, Abby Steiner, 22:09, is legit. She's
Yeah.
going
Look at the
to,
all-time list. Look at all-time list. She's number
yeah,
2. Indoors.
yeah,
Only Audis run faster. So no one's disagreeing that she's legit. She's obviously been legit for a while. Is she a favorite to make the team in the 200? I think, yeah. Medal is tough because we know how good the world is right now in the 200 with Mboma, with Thompson Hurrah, et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, sub 22 is going to be basically required to make the team based on how fast they ran last year, and I think she'd be in the top 3 right now. I don't think that's crazy to say. No one's arguing with you on that.
yeah. I'm just so happy that I saw this 3 years ago.
Jesus. God. I am too.
Because that's what I
You
do.
know what?
Every
I am
year
too.
I just look at the landscape and I'm like, it's you. You are the person I'm gonna ride until it falls apart. I've done that multiple times with different, sometimes it does fall apart. I've ridden certain
Yeah.
athletes where I'm like, ooh, and then they give me a little bit of moment of joy and then it goes away. But Steiner right now is looking pretty good. I
Yeah.
think this might be the one that I get 100% right.
I won't bring up the people who you bet everything on and have lost on. I will not do that.
Okay.
Distance side of things, you want to talk about Nico Young?
Yeah. Now, obviously, this isn't like collegiate record or top 2 in the world all time indoor performance, but Nico Young's kind of an interesting situation. He's a contender to win NCAAs at the 3K or the 5K, and he didn't run 2 weeks ago because he was sick. And As we know, the 3K on the NCAA side is incredibly deep. So I was kind of interested how Nico Young will qualify. And I think it's kind of funny. I think it's kind of funny. Nico Young ran 7:59 in a 3K. 7:59 in a 3K is good for, let's bring this up. I have top 7:59 in a 3K. Gosh dang it. Sorry. I'm messing with my order.
You ruined this clip too.
I'm ruining this clip too. All right, 7:59 in a 3K is the equivalent to being like the 120th time in the NCAA. So he runs the 120th time in the NCAA, but because he did it in Bozeman, Montana, which is at altitude and a flat track, he gets an insane conversion. He got a 18-second conversion that brought him all the way down to 7:41. I just thought it was kind of funny that 7:59, 18 seconds later, you're now 7:41. And I think Nico Young could potentially win NCAA in the 3K or 5K. I think Wesley Kiptoo has shown flaws that he's not 100% himself. He got smoked by a Texas athlete at Big 12s in the 5K. But the Nico Young and Abdihamid Nur 1-2 punch at NCAAs could have a Cooper Tier, Cole Hawker type run potentially for indoors, because they're both in the 3 and the 5, and there's not a true number one. Obviously, there's people with fast times like Florida State kid and Campbell kid and are all over the place, right? But I think NAU might be able to pull off a potential 18 and 16 points, which would be a lot. So we'll see though.
Mm-hmm. What's the track record with people who get their qualifiers at conference versus 2 months ago?
I don't know. I don't know the analytics of that, but I mean, just following the NCAA in general, there were a lot of people who thought they were safe who got bumped out because of last minute. Two Oregon kids ran 3:54 in a mile at BU. Another Oregon guy ran 13:21 in a 5K. The DMRs got faster. There was women's DMRs. I thought they were safe, but then ACC women's DMR was fast. Pac-12 had a fast DMR.
Pac-12 was fast.
There were just all of these typically you expect fast marks to come at conferences in the sprints because it's like SEC, ACC, Big 12, you're going for it. But to see fast marks this past weekend on the distance side was kind of a little bit of a surprise, in my opinion, because typically you kind of put it all out there mid-February and then you kind of just do sit and kicks conference weekend. But man, a lot of people still ran fast. And but I mean, Brandon Miller ran a 1:45.800. Just insane.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, don't forget about him in terms of qualifying for US teams. And Trey Cunningham, this isn't distance, but 7:40. He's got to get close to Grant's collegiate record.
Yeah. I mean, I could just do a highlights of all the impressive marks we saw. Obviously, Abby Steiner ran 22:09 NCAA record. Her teammate from Kentucky, Alexis Holmes, ran 50.77, which is top 10 NCAA all-time. So Kentucky has a good 1-2 punch in Abby and Alexis. Mentioned Brandon Miller, 145, number 3 NCAA all-time. It was 145 low. Very impressive. Nico Young, obviously, with the 7:41 time qualifier. Trey Cunningham, 7.4 in the 60 hurdles. Man, I really wish Trey Cunningham could have been at US Indoors to challenge Grant Holloway and then ultimately challenge him again at World Indoors. But we're not going to get to see Trey, you could argue the second best hurdler in the world, race the best hurdler in the world until NCAAs is over, which kind of sucks. And then also in the sprints, the Arkansas women's 4x4 ran 3:24.09. They broke the collegiate record by 2 seconds. That's a half a second per leg. It's insane. And I feel like no one's talking about it. I mean, they ran 3:24.09. They broke the NCAA record by 2 whole seconds. Very impressive.
I'm talking about it, Gordon. I'm in Arkansas, so I'm going to be talking about it. I'm going to try to figure out how they did it. That's my job the next couple of days. I'm going to do the same thing, but on the pro side of things, for the other U.S. indoor races, and then we can chit-chat about the ones we want to. So Heather McLean wins a 15, very dramatic race. She was 5th with a lap to go, moves up, and she gets the win. Josette Norris 2nd. They both pass Purrier on the home stretch. Purrier qualifies in the 3 the next day. Her and Alicia Monson broke away, and then Purrier just dropped the hammer on that last lap, which was mighty impressive. When I was watching, I watched the 15 after I knew what happened. And I did the same thing I did with the men, where I was just looking at it from a tactical perspective. And Purrier led basically the whole way. And the pace was fine, but it wasn't like ridiculously slow. It wasn't a jog fest. But it also, I mean, the winning time was 4:06. And I thought, maybe obviously Purrier has the ability to kind of go from the gun and just run closer to 4 minutes on this 15. Perhaps that would have worked, but Norris and McLean are really good. So that was tough. Tough break for her, but she gets in. And then women's 60, the two women who have been running the best and most consistent for the U.S. all year get on the team. Micaiah Briscoe, 7:07. Mary Beth Sant Price, 7:08. I just thought it was interesting that held. Other than McLean, if you look at the running events, it was like favorites all around, pretty much. Like Lena Irby wins the quarter, Bryce Hoppel wins the 8, Ajay Wilson wins the 8, Grant Holloway wins the men's high hurdles. Cunningham wins the women's high hurdles, but she's made teams before, so that wasn't a huge surprise. We talked about Coleman already. Like, for how little information we had going into the meet, it was incredible how the person you thought was going to win ended up winning. And even the runner-ups too. We thought Bohr would get on the team after Hawker, and that's where he ran at the 3K.
Yeah, I mean, on the women's distance, it was
Monson.
people he thought would be in there. I mean, McLean was the one that's kind of the wild card, but at the end of the day, McLean also is an Olympian. So she was like the first wild card that you would expect, and she happened to pull it off. And it was and Purrier she's training partners with Purrier, so it makes sense, right? If we put Purrier there, why not her training partner who runs every stride for her in practice? Krauser and Ewan, they threw well and shot. Yeah, the field events were kind of going to form as well. Couple little upsets here and there, but not anything too drastic. It was a very chalky meet. Very chalky. Lots of chalk.
Yeah. The only thing that was wild was the 400 for the men, just because of the DQ drama. But if you told me before it's going to be Bassett and Brazier, I wouldn't. Like, beginning of the year, I thought Noah Williams, Trevor Stewart, based on what they did last year in prior seasons, the guys. But looking at how they ran, this year, you're like, all right, there's room for some of these other guys to factor in there, and so Bassett and Brazier going 1-2 wasn't a surprise. The thing with the Purrier race that I thought was interesting, and I'm just basically cannibalizing all the things I did for This Week in Track, but whatever. You're listening to the last 10 minutes of the podcast, you get a little bonus. She was unlucky and she did the look at the end, and people are going to focus on the look of like she shouldn't have turned her head, right? Because maybe that could have saved her the 100th of a second over Norris. She was unlucky in terms of the entries. You made that graph last week. The women's 15 was one of the few running events where 1, 2, and 3 from last year's Olympic trials were there. And then you throw in Josette Norris, who was a legit contender last year. So you had, and then even the people behind that, like the Jones, Hiltz, etc., those people were really good too. So that event came to play. So she was in a spot where she didn't have as much room for error as some of these other favorites did, where maybe there was one other person there, or maybe there was the 5th place person from trials last year, but there wasn't literally 1, 2, 3 coming back. So in that sense, I think she got a tad unlucky just on who signed up for the meet.
All right. I'm going to do a little experiment with you.
Okay.
You're a coach.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And you have an incoming recruit.
Mm-hmm.
Distance runner. I'm going to give you 2 different recruits, and you're going to tell me which recruit you think is better. Okay?
Okay.
You ready? Okay.
Ready.
Recruit number 1, their times are 3:55 mile, 7:46 3K, 13:27 5K. Recruit number
Going into
2.
college? This is going into college or going from college to pro?
No, say coming out of college.
Okay.
So you're
So I'm
pro.
like an
You're
agent.
pro. You're an agent. Yeah, agent. You got a guy who's run 355, 746, 13:27. And then now you also have a guy who's run 357, 744, 13:18. So basically,
Yeah.
3Ks
Faster mile.
arguably basically the 3Ks are basically the same. 5Ks is a difference of 10 seconds, but a 2-second faster miler. Who you
I'd
taking?
probably take the 2-second faster miler.
Okay. So the person who has the faster mile, the 355, 746, 13:27, is an NCAA athlete who can't qualify for NCAAs because those marks are the 17th fastest mark in NCAAs.
Wait. That's not it's a composite character?
No, that's a person.
It's not a person?
It's not a person. You know the marks of the other person is Galen Rupp in college.
Well, it's tough to compare Galen Rupp to a amalgamation of the 17th best marks. But I get your point.
But like, think
it's
of
fast this year.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
That's crazy. You were like, yeah, I'll take the guy who can't qualify for NCAAs over Galen freaking Rupp. And obviously, Galen's Rupp marks are from 2010 and earlier, so it's a lot. Times have changed over the past decade. But it's basically showing you 355, 746, 13:27, not fast enough to get into the NCAAs. Now, sure, some people might scratch, so that 355 will probably get in. But it is insane what it took to be top 16 this year. Like, beyond insane. It's like albatross insane. What's your reaction to these crazy 17th? What?
I don't even know what word you said. I don't know what word that was, but let's keep going.
Albatross insane.
What are my reactions? I'm curious for next year because I want to see if it holds, or is it just this year? Because I want to know the reasons why, and we've talked about why the reasons possibly could be, but I want to know why the reasons actually are. I mean, it made me. We always talk about competition versus times, and I know you're limited in indoors because you can't have everybody. You can't make the season extend for forever. But it did make me think outdoors. If there was more of a run, if it was top 16 go to outdoor nationals, like it is for indoors, and there was no regionals, what sort of times do you think would happen there? I mean, it would totally change the way the sport is run, but it would be interesting just to see how fast they would go.
Yeah, when you know you only need to be the 48th fastest person in your side of the country, you don't need to push yourself as much.
Yeah, a lot of guys and women you jog through, especially if you're a favorite. If you're really good, if you have chance for an NCAA title, you need to still, because there's not much of a gap, you still need to put out a really strong effort. Outdoors, to stay in the top 48 in your region, you can jog. And you cannot do that in indoors. Right?
Morgan McDonald did that.
I do. I remember that. Yeah, in a B heat or something. But and listen, I remember that same year, maybe it was the next year, he waited till Big Tens to get his qualifier in the 5K. So he was moving. He was doing his best. I mean, he wasn't running a PR or anything like that, but he had to put he wasn't doing it in the B heat of an outdoor race. So yeah, I don't know what's the correct takeaway from it, other than I think next year coaches are not going to take anything for granted if they did this year. But I think it took, what did it take? About half the season, maybe even a couple weeks into the season for coaches to be like, okay, I need to recalibrate what I think is fast and what I think is possible. Because we were guessing those DMR times, and we ended up being on the conservative side. Like we were wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I was texting back and forth with a coach this past weekend who thought they were safe in the DMR, and their time slowly got closer and closer to the cutoff point because of what was happening to ACCs, what was happening to Pac-12, potential SECs, where you thought like, oh yeah, I'm in the good side of the top 12. It's gonna be fine. And then all of a sudden you're like, oh wait, another team bumped you, another team. So it was probably stressful for a lot of the coaches out there who had athletes in like the 10 to 16 range who were like, wait,
Yeah.
another 354 mile? You got to be kidding me, you know?
I know we'll never be able to create the exact same competition for everybody or the speed of the track, but I wish we could at least just make it possible. If I can wave a magic wand, everybody runs with the same altitude conversion and everybody runs with the same track conversion. I think that would be a little bit more fun to watch, in my opinion. And I know it's not possible because there's not enough indoor tracks, and then you put the altitude schools at disadvantages because they have to travel more and all that stuff. But if there could be a tweak just to make it a little better, I just wish everybody was on banked 200-meter tracks without insane altitude conversions. So if someone runs, a 15:05 5K for the women, like what that means versus if someone runs a 15:45 5K, but it's on a flat track and at 8,000 feet.
I will say though, this was a year where altitude and track conversions really wasn't what caused the chaos because like in
Oh,
the
I know that. I'm
mile,
just saying it's easier
only
to
two
follow. I'm
people
just
have
saying.
altitude conversions in the mile, and both of those people are likely to scratch. It's Nico Young and Abdi Hamidur.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of I do remember when conversions became bigger, when people were throwing down faster conversions, everyone's like, wait a minute, why is Christian Serratos number one in the mile? Because
Yeah.
he ran a 402 mile at altitude on a flat track, and now he's 353. What's going on? There was a little bit of debate there, but now the debate
I'm
is
just
like, I just trained an athlete to run 355, and they're not fast enough to go to NCAAs. It's insane.
well, though now is you got to get onto these. It's not you got to get onto the faster track. It just seems the conversions aren't worth it. I was just saying from like a fan perspective, like trying to figure out all that stuff sometimes can be daunting versus just like a time they're in, they're out. It's like pretty clear. But yeah, I think the idea is you get to be you, or you get to one of these other fast tracks in the country and take advantage of it and create a race for you. You mentioned those Oregon guys getting in at the last minute in the Josh Kerr race. Perfect example.
I want to end the pod with this.
Mm-hmm.
We had a total of 90 athletes on the Division I side break 4 minutes in the mile. 90. Some had a flat track conversion, some had an altitude conversion, but 90 athletes. Athlete number 90 this past weekend ran 359.98. Can you guess who athlete number 90 is?
I know who it wasn't, and I'm really sad about it.
Who was
Our
it?
man at Mountain West got like third. Wait a minute. Did he get in another
Involving
race?
conversions.
Oh,
Conversions.
see? The conversion got me. Pancake?
Yeah, Devin Pancake ran 359.98 converted. He ran a 405, but because he did it in Albuquerque, converts to 359.98. Our boy Devin Pancake is officially a sub 4 miler.
A converted
right here,
sub 4
359.
miler.
It's our boy.
I don't think he considers himself sub 4, but I looked it up. I looked it up because I saw the Mountain West results and I was like, he missed. But I didn't even see. Case in point, altitude conversions hard to follow. All these indoor tracks need to create the biospheres or whatever, so you can pump more oxygen in or something. Yeah. Well, congrats to him. I'm very excited that he got the converted sub 4. Great way to end the show. Thanks to our sponsor, Hoka, CLOX from Hoka. Check it out, Hoka.com. Faster forward. We're going to have the bonus pod coming up for members. So if you're not a member yet, you can join. You can join Gordon's team, my team. Doesn't matter. I won't take it personally if you don't join my team. We'll be back Wednesday. We got This Week in Track coming out later on today on Monday. Tuesday, I'll do a race breakdown, probably of Josh Kerr. And then Gordon has his NCAA rankings, and I have my rankings as well. We got Tokyo Marathon coming. We'll have a special Tokyo Marathon announcement coming on Wednesday as well. too about this show. Before we go, though, we want to leave you with this.
Quickly, this is something that got clipped up by Travis. Kevin, this is your live reaction to Gordon transitioning to the Coleman topic.
Let me see.
You're baffled. You're so confused. You have no idea what's going on.
I thought it was going to be the Gordon as a college freshman picture. That's what I thought it was going to be.
Oh man,
because I couldn't contain myself. I just totally ruined that clip. But all right, thank you, Cole. Thank you, Travis. We'll talk to you guys Wednesday. Thanks everybody for listening and downloading. Have a good one.